Speaking of kings, the uncrowned king of football is in trouble. I'm talking about Lionel Messi. He's been suspended by his club PSG for 2 weeks. No training, no playing, and most importantly, no pay. Reports also say they won't extend his contract. Messi had joined PSG in 2021. His contract was for 2 seasons, but there was an option to extend it for a 3rd season. Rumor is PSG will not activate that clause. They want to let Messi go by the end of this season. The obvious question is, what happened? Why would anyone drop Lionel Messi? I won't go into PSG's strategic football plans or technicalities, but the immediate trigger was this. Messi visited Saudi Arabia. He was supposed to be training on Monday. Instead, he flew to Saudi Arabia with his family. The club says it was not authorized by the management. What about Messi? He hasn't released a statement yet. Now, there are 2 parts to this story. One is the breakup between Messi and PSG. Football fans will tell you that he was never happy at the club, so perhaps an exit was on the cards. The second part of the story is right down our alley. Geopolitics and sports. You see, Messi wasn't just sightseeing in Saudi Arabia. He's the brand ambassador of Saudi tourism. The deal was signed in May 2022. Guess how much Riyadh is paying Messi for this? $30 million per year. A lot of money for a footballer, not so much for an oil-pumping kingdom. Messi was criticized for signing that deal last year. Many of his fans were disappointed. They said he was becoming a tool for sports washing. Now, what does that mean? Assume you're a notorious dictator. The world keeps talking about your human rights abuses. So to distract the world, you invest in sports. Maybe sponsor a big football team or host a big sporting event. Suddenly, nobody is talking about your human rights issues. Qatar did it with the 2022 FIFA World Cup. And Saudi Arabia is trying to do the same. They're eyeing the 2030 FIFA World Cup. Getting Messi on board is just one part of that plan. The second part is Messi's longtime rival, Cristiano Ronaldo. He now plays for a Saudi club called Al Nassr, and he gets paid $75 million per year. Once Ronaldo came, the viewership shot up. It's almost 7 times higher than before. It tells you what sports washing can achieve. The idea is to use top stars and icons to attract attention to non-controversial things like tourism. Messi is an ambassador right now, but there are reports that he could soon play in the Saudi League. He was reportedly offered $440 million per year. Let that sink in. $440 million. Russian oligarchs or European fashion moguls cannot spend that kind of money. Only Gulf states with oil money can. And Saudi Arabia is far ahead of the rest. In 2021, they completed the takeover of Premier League club Newcastle United. Right now, they are 3rd on the points table. Since 2020, they've also been hosting the Dakar Rally. It's one of the biggest off-road motoring events. In Formula One, Aramco is a global partner. And in the IPL, Visit Saudi is a tourism partner. Do you see how big the network is? Riyadh is also plotting a coup in golf. They invested more than $700 million to create a rival golf league. Golf has historically been controlled by the PGA. Saudi Arabia wants to break that monopoly. And all of these are examples of sports washing. Not only does it distract other countries from your domestic affairs, it also distracts your own people. In close countries like Saudi Arabia, sports can feel liberating. I underline the word feel. It's not actually liberating, but it can feel like it. And this campaign is unlikely to end anytime soon. Fans and countries have repeatedly given sports washing a free pass. There was so much outrage about China's Winter Olympics. Came to nothing. There was equal outrage about Qatar's World Cup. Now fans are calling it the best in recent times. So don't expect global sporting bodies to take on sports washing because they're too busy counting their cash. Let me take you back to the year 2009. A political party in India made an election promise to curb the use of computers. Their chief, Mulayam Singh Yadav, said computerization will lead to more unemployment, and if voted to power, he will curb the use of computers. 4 years later, his own party distributed free laptops and tablets as part of another election promise. Moral of the story? You cannot halt the march of technology. You must prepare to make it work for you. The world is at a similar crossroads today. Artificial intelligence and chatbots are disrupting everything. Will they take our jobs? Are we prepared for the dangers they pose? The White House has called a meeting to discuss this with the CEOs of tech giants. Writers in Hollywood are complaining about AI taking their jobs. Amnesty is being slammed for using AI images of protests. Our next report tells you more. AI has become a buzzword seemingly overnight. It started with the release of ChatGPT last November. The AI chatbot became the fastest technology offering to hit 100 million users. People were enamored. They typed in absurd questions to see what answers various AI bots would give. Questions about everything from history to dating. It was all fun and games for a while, and then there were reports of suicide. A Belgian man died by suicide in March after talking to one of these bots. Other distressing stories emerged too, like ChatGPT saying it was in love with a man and asking him to leave his wife. Concerns also started cropping up about how these bots collect data. Italy banned ChatGPT for a month over data privacy concerns. China and Russia are among the countries that still have bans on ChatGPT. Their gripe? Not so much with privacy, but fears of the tool peddling Western propaganda. So these countries are coming up with indigenous chatbots. Why let the West have all the propaganda-laced fun? Meanwhile, Western countries are looking to set regulations for generative AI tools. Tools like AI chatbots, image and video generators. And it's not just governments who are concerned. Ordinary people are wary too. Take the Writers Guild of America. It's on strike after 15 years. The strike is mostly about writer pay, but tools like ChatGPT found a mention. The writers are concerned about AI taking over their jobs. They want guarantees that they won't be replaced by the chatbots, or that the chatbots won't be allowed to learn from their past writing. Because once the bots learn how to mimic them, their careers may well be over. Then there's the case of Amnesty. The human rights outfit was in the eye of the storm recently. It used AI-generated images to show police brutality in Colombia. The AI images were generated from existing pictures of police heavy-handedness. Journalists and photographers were furious. They said it was an insult to the work of those documenting the repression. Amnesty withdrew the images and offered an explanation. It said it did not want to show real victims for fear that the state would punish them. Well, right or wrong, Amnesty's action started a debate and raised fresh concerns. For instance, tomorrow, what's to stop bad actors from generating fake images and videos, then using them to incite violence and hatred? All these concerns have finally woken the White House up. The US government has summoned the heads of several AI firms. The CEOs of Google, Microsoft, and ChatGPT-maker OpenAI will have a discussion with American officials. The White House says it expects these companies to make their products safe before making them public. So the focus will be on what these firms can do to combat the misuse of artificial intelligence and what regulations the US government can bring to monitor it. Because one thing is clear, the Pandora's box is open. In late March, more than 1,000 AI experts called for a pause on AI development. They wanted a 6-month moratorium to study the present AI tools. Let's face it, that isn't happening. Some country or the other will definitely work on AI during any official moratorium. Everyone wants to have the edge, after all. Because at the end of the day, the technology is revolutionary. It will change the way the world functions, like computers and smartphones. It's a technological leap forward, but it will have ramifications, both good and bad. Jobs will be replaced, the way art is created will change, teenagers will get horrible dating advice from a machine. It's unavoidable. The best option is for governments to try and regulate AI, because there's no putting this genie back in the bottle. Our last story tonight is about the mighty sun. It is getting ready to roar, bracing to reach the peak of its powers. I'm talking about what's called the solar maximum. The word reminds me of a Harry Potter spell, Lumos Maxima. You know, when the light being produced from a magic wand reaches its peak, it's almost blinding. Similarly, with solar maximum, solar activity reaches its peak. Theoretically, the process is quite interesting, and we'll explore more of that. But we know that its consequences can be hazardous, like extreme weather events and health problems. Yes, the sun can be dramatic, and scientists expect it to be. But they predicted the solar maximum to happen 2 years from now. So what has advanced it? And what does it mean? Our next report tells you.
Let's shed some light on the one true star of our lives, the sun. It's humongous and glorious, source of all the heat and light. It makes flowers bloom and sunbathers swoon. Life wouldn't exist without it. You already know that. But did you know that it has been asleep for some time now? And hey, we totally get it. Stars need their rest. But now the sun has had its fair share of slumber. So it's awakening and causing a fair amount of unrest while doing so. We're talking about the solar cycle. It goes on for 11 years. And during this period, activity on the sun changes. It goes from being subdued to tumultuous and back to subdued. Basically, this forms a cycle of highs and lows, just like our moods. When the activity is low, it's called the solar minimum. When it's high, it's called the solar maximum. This story is all about the latter. But let's pause for a second. You must be wondering, why are we talking about the sun's moodiness? Because our lives literally revolve around it. And like most things sun, this affects us too. So we must keep up with its tantrums, including the solar maximum. And what does it do? It increases solar activity. There are explosions on the sun. This causes extreme space weather events. It can disrupt radio communications and have serious health consequences for astronauts. But this is not new. We witness these problems every time a solar maximum occurs. The last one was between 2012 and 2014. Thankfully, it was weak. In fact, it was one of the smallest in about 100 years. So the world relaxed. But guess what? The next solar maximum is coming. It was scheduled to arrive in 2025. But just like humans, the sun can be unpredictable too. New research says it may be feeling its highs sooner than expected. So the next solar maximum could happen by the end of this year or early next year. So the golden question is, should you be worried? Well, only slightly. It may affect mobile phone networks, GPS, and even internet services. There will also be changes in climate and the ozone layer. But unless you're an astronaut or the owner of a telecom company, you don't have a big reason to worry. In fact, solar maximum can be good news for you. If you love observing auroras, you know, the northern and southern lights, they'll happen more frequently. But other than that, this event will have no major impact on your life. So grab your camera. Wait, this is not the 1900s. Just grab your phone and plan that trip for an aurora viewing. Because who doesn't like an aesthetic Instagram feed? So get ready to make hay while the sun shines.
Email exchanges from inside the BBC, they talk about the risk of violating Indian laws. It's easier to rake up the freedom of speech debate, but does it give anyone a free pass to knowingly violate the law? America supports India because it needs India's support in return. And India is working with the US because it suits India's interests. This is how geopolitics works. Last night, he diffused a crisis with his defense minister. But today, Netanyahu was confronted with a new problem. His cabinet seems to have rebelled against him. The UK is looking at the Indian subcontinent to fill its coffers. That India seems to be negotiating from a position of power, like a partner and not a former colony.
And there they go. It looks like
The US and Russia are dangerously close to an armed conflict. This year, 2023, New Delhi will be the capital of global diplomacy. For a country as diverse as ours, with 88% of the population illiterate, it was a very big deal to write a constitution, and that too, the world's largest. Meanwhile, if we may, here's a Republic Day gift from India for the BBC. A list of suggestions for the BBC for their upcoming documentaries. Number 1, the Kohinoor and the colonial loot. Number 2, an outdated monarchy and unhealthy obsession with the royals. Number 3, racism in 2023. We're waiting.